we're starting to get some dates for college football's return. For instance, the Big 12 has set June 15th for the time athletes can return to campus for workouts. What will this look like, and what are the concerns in the COVID-19 pandemic world? Three Big 12 beat writers, Jesse Newell and Kellis Robinette of the Kansas City Star and Wichita Eagle, and Drew Davison of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, tackle those questions and more on SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Thursday, May 28th, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. Jesse, Kellis, and Drew also take a guess at what the college football season will look like when it's set to begin on Labor Day weekend, from scheduling to fans in the stands and even some alternative plans. So here we go with the Big 12 beat writers. Hey, it's great talking college sports with you guys, and today those guys are Kellis Robinette. Kellis, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Blair. Thanks for having me on again.
Well, and we want to formally welcome Baker Robinette to the Robinette family, and tell us about what was that? What was the birthday? May 12th?
May 11th.
I can't get anything right.
Yeah, one of those. I don't know. I got 4 kids. It's hard to keep track anymore. But yeah, he was born in the middle of the night, 3:33 a.m. He's been home for a little over 2 weeks. It's been going good so far. We were worried his brothers might not like the addition of another one, but no, they've welcomed them. It's been good. We're still trying to get him to sleep at night a little better. So me and Mom are a little tired, but other than that, it's good. It's good around here. Bet.
Hey, congratulations! And joining us today from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram is Drew Davidson. Drew, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good, Blair. Hope you can hear me.
We hear you well. Last time you and I talked was on NFL Draft Night when the Chiefs selected Lucas Niang, the TCU offensive lineman, tackle for TCU. Looks like he's going to be a guard, it's at least to start out for the Chiefs. And so that got me wondering, the Chiefs took a Big 12 player. Do you know who the last Big 12 player the Chiefs selected in the draft?
I got a feeling it might be the reigning Super Bowl MVP.
It is. You got to go all the way back to 2017. That's right. They hadn't drafted a Big 12 player since Patrick Mahomes when they took Lucas Niang, and they've only drafted 3 in the history of the Andy Reid era with the Chiefs, which I found surprising as well. The other one being Braden Wilson, the Kansas State fullback back in 2013. So, and we got Jesse Newell. Jesse, how you doing, man?
Doing good, Blair. I'm wondering about Kellis's basketball team, though. Who's playing point guard for you, Kellis?
At this point, Baker, maybe.
Sounds good.
So I wanted to talk to you guys today and talk about college football because, while we've been dealing with a lot of unknowns over the last few weeks, there are some knowns are beginning to reveal themselves, like starting dates. The Big 12 had we heard from Bob Bowlesby, who said that football teams will be allowed to begin working out on June the 15th. That's a league-wide rule. Schools can set their own dates. But that is the Big 12 and the Pac-12 are both at June 15th. I think the SEC is a week earlier, and we have some, we're starting to see some signs of life in college football across the country. But I'm wondering what the particular schools are doing, and we have 30% of the Big 12 schools represented here, the beat writers, with Kansas State, and TCU. So, Drew, let's start with you. What is TCU? Any idea what the plans are to restart or to get football practice started?
Yeah, TCU is ready to go right on June 15th. I mean, I think they're actually going to bring in guys, maybe even a few guys a couple days early just to go through the testing and whatnot, but then just kind of slowly phase them in. But they're fully planning on starting June 15th, and that's Gary Patterson's ready to go, and I'm sure he's ready to get his guys back. But all signs point toward them starting right on day one.
Okay. Hey, Kellis, how about in Manhattan? What's going to happen in K-State?
Yeah, same deal. Riley County is, been one of the least affected counties maybe in the entire country on this whole coronavirus thing. So there's no hesitation here. Businesses and bars, every place just about is open in the city. So they're ready to go on June 15th. Coaches are already back on campus working amongst themselves. I know certain players have been back for a few weeks here in Manhattan working out amongst themselves as well. So they'll be ready to go on June 15th with some restrictions, small groups in the weight rooms and stuff like that. But there's really no reason to slow things down any more than that here.
Yeah, I've seen some of that small group restrictions at some schools. How about at KU, Jesse? What's Les Miles planning?
Well, right now it's just both Jeff Long, the athletic director, and Douglas Girard, they were on a University of Kansas Health System call earlier this week to kind of talk about it. But it's sort of like what we've just been describing to the other two schools, which is June 15th when those guys are supposed to be back. I know Jeff Long made specific mention of Adidas giving 2,000 masks to KU's players, and he said that masks would be a vital part of what they did when they started to do workouts. I would think particularly weightlifting and things like that when you're indoors compared to outdoors. But it seems like everyone else. I know Oklahoma was kind of the outlier here where they're going to bring kids back a little bit more conservatively with Lincoln Riley's comments and him being very public about that. But it's sort of an interesting deal for Kansas because they do work with the University of Kansas Health System with their trainers and weightlifting staff and all those sorts of things. So I'm sure there's going to be an extra eye there. And also Douglas Girard, the chancellor for Kansas, is a medicine man himself. So,
Right.
a doctor himself. So, yeah, I think cautiously they're going to do this, and they'll obviously be checking with experts, but I don't foresee anything different than what the other schools are doing right now other than Oklahoma, which is I think June 15th they're going to have their guys back and proceed forward from there.
July 1st actually is what Lincoln Riley is saying for OU, which is really interesting. And you're right, Jesse. He's been more sounding the cautionary tale more than other coaches that I've seen. And I know that when kind of his first public comments about this, I don't know if they were in late March or into April. He was kind of adamant about let's take this slowly. Let's not rush back. While other coaches and even some presidents and chancellors were saying they fully expect to have students on campus in the fall and fans in the stands and basically almost business as usual. Lincoln Riley was the one who was being I don't want to say voice of reason, but certainly voice of caution here. And I think they're going to practice this. I read some comments by Joe Castiglione, the athletic director, talking about the making it imperative the priority the safety of the student athletes and so they're going to wait another couple weeks. It looks like after the rest of the Big 12. I haven't checked on the others. Drew, have you seen any other in the Big 12 besides the ones we just mentioned?
Yeah, well, I know Oklahoma's July 1st, but I'm pretty sure all the Texas schools are planning on going June 15th like TCU, and I'm pretty sure Texas is going to be June 15th and whatnot. And I think it's kind of twofold. Some would argue that hey, getting these guys back on campus could be a better environment, arguably a safer environment than their homes or whatnot. So I see all sides to it, but certainly I think July 1st is kind of the drop dead date if teams want to be ready by week 1.
Yeah, I was going to say, how much time does that leave, really? If college football, the traditional opening weekend is Labor Day weekend for everybody. So you're talking about basically all of half of June, July, and then August. I guess this will happen even with campuses closed for other students. That I guess I don't know that. Or will athletes be on campus at KU, K-State, TCU, and other places with the campuses closed for all other students? Is that known?
I believe that's the case at Kansas State. They'll be here, but they'll be the only students around.
Yeah, at TCU, they're going to obviously, and I think it's the Big 12 policy, football players are back on campus. No one else is come June 15th. And then I believe July 1st, other fall sports, and then July 15th, the rest, winter and spring sports can get here. But, as far as TCU is concerned, I think August 24th is the date they plan on starting the fall semester with in-person classes. So, I would assume students arrive, a few days before that date.
I think I heard Bob Bowlesby say this earlier in the week. I thought it was really interesting. I'll quote him here, see if I get most of this right. He said, this sort of the conditions, the circumstances that we're in now, it's always been managed by, governors, public health officials, and mayors. Soon it will be in the hands of university presidents, chancellors, and athletic directors. I think some might suggest that that's a frightening proposition because we know what's at stake for college football, right? The importance of having college football financially for these universities. I don't believe this has happened in the Big 12 where any school has announced a dropping of sport, but it certainly has happened in other places around the country. The most recent one I saw, I think, was Appalachian State dropping 3 sports, including a men's soccer program that they've had since the early 70s. So what is this going to? Let's just say we get through, whatever preseason football is going to look like in June, July, and August, and now we're at the first weekend of college football. What might that look like? Are we going to see fans in the stands?
Well, I can say from TCU's perspective, and the state of Texas is allowing 25% capacity, I believe, come June 1st at outdoor venues. And just talking to the TCU AD, he's expecting fans to be there, but he's looking at the range of 25 to 50% capacity, somewhere in that range. And obviously that's going to create a whole nother layer of headaches for TCU and trying to allocate those tickets fairly. But yeah, as far as TCU and the Texas schools are concerned, it's looking, at least the first few games, 25 to 50% is kind of what they're expecting.
I don't think I've seen an announcement from Kansas or Kansas State about this. We have seen something from Iowa State with Jamie Pollard saying what was his
50% as well.
Yeah, half the stadium at Jack Trice Stadium, and those will only go to see. Did I see that right? Only to season ticket holders.
Yeah, that's correct.
Get first dibs at it.
Yeah, and actually TCU, Blair, has 30,000 season ticket holders and 46,000 seats. So if it's 50% capacity, there's going to be some season ticket holders who are left out. So I think a lot of colleges are going to be facing that kind of problem in how to, what fans can get in, or, hey, you can come to this game but not that game, or how they're going to handle it.
Yeah, and Blair, Jeff Long did actually talk about this. KU has started modeling this sort of thing, and he said 15 to 16,000 at Memorial Stadium is the last model that they had. So that'd be about 1/3 capacity, which is, new Memorial Stadium with the Field Goal Club taken out is 47,000. I think something also you have to look into, Drew, when it comes to that. I understand the headaches it creates, but I think there will be a certain segment of the population out there that's not going to feel comfortable going out and going to these games. And I know that'll especially be the case if KU has to face limited capacity for Allen Fieldhouse. I've already heard from people like that, where older people or people with health conditions. I mean, are you going to feel comfortable walking through concourses, going up to your seat, and being potentially very close and in a very close area indoors with other people around when that could impact your safety? So potentially this problem could solve itself in a bad way, which is the fact that maybe, I don't want to guesstimate a number, but potentially some percentage of these people that have season tickets will not want season tickets, at least until there's a little bit more safety out there, or known safety out there.
It's going to be a headache no matter how they do it, because I do think there will be more demand than supply, whatever the final number ends up being. I think Iowa State's projection of half capacity is a little bit high. I'm not sure how you can spread out properly 30,000 people in a stadium like that. I think it'll be more like 25% when everything is said and done. But that to me is the biggest question about the football season coming up, is what are the stands going to be like? I think they'll find some way to play the games, but I don't know that anybody for sure knows the answer yet of what it'll be like in terms of fans actually watching the games like we've seen in most years.
Yeah, we heard from Ohio State athletic director Gene Smith. Was it last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago? But he, in the horseshoe that seats over 100,000, he was talking 20 to 22,000, and that makes mathematical sense, right? One, every 5, you place a fan every 5 seats away, and that way you can keep the the type of social distancing that the health officials are suggesting. Yeah, I don't. You're right. I mean, 30,000 at Iowa State. Jack Trice holds about 60, right? 61,000, and I'm not sure how that'll work. So. But okay, let's take a quick break here. When we come back, I want to talk about some other actions that schools have taken. We'll be right back. Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners: unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site. And it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeat Offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening. Okay, we're back with Jesse Newell, Kellis Robinette, and Drew Davidson. And Jesse, the headline splashed across the top of the Kansas City Star, and I assume the Wichita Eagle today, is KU Athletics enacts pay cuts, furloughs through 2020. Not unusual. And we actually heard that Kansas, and we knew that Kansas had done something like this with Bill Self, Les Miles, and Jeff Long back in April. What's the significance of these cuts, and how much savings is Kansas looking at by cutting salary?
Yeah, I think in all they were estimating about $1.15 million when you count in the Jeff Long, Les Miles, and Bill Self cuts. I think this new wave saves them about $650,000. But I think you can look at this a couple different ways, and Kellis can speak to this. K-State announced pay cuts about a month ago or 2 months ago. So this isn't unexpected. This is sort of what athletic departments are going through as they're looking at their finances and realizing that this pandemic is going to affect those sorts of things. So this is not huge, crazy news. This isn't something that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. But the way KU did it, you can look at it some different ways. I mean, I guess for KU's sake, it's actually kind of clever, if you will, because if you look at the 4-tiered plan that they have and these employees that potentially could take furloughs in the lower and middle tiers, those furloughed employees, from my understanding and looking at the from what's out there with the new stimulus package, those have to be taken, those furloughs, by the end of July. And as we know, this new stimulus package, those funds, if you get unemployment, you get $600 more per week from the government if that takes place before the end of July. So in essence, it's sort of interesting here because for Kansas, basically by telling those workers to not come and not work those couple weeks, they will go home and most likely get paychecks that are very similar to what they made with KU Athletics, yet it's going to be the government paying for those paychecks in that matter of time instead of Kansas. So it's sort of an interesting maneuver. I can see what Kansas is doing. And obviously, when you're trying to take care of employees while also saving money, it seems like a pretty smart thing to do to get that paid for them and take care of them while also saving a few bucks on this side of it. But again, not too unexpected. Seems like kind of an interesting thing for Kansas to do to kind of take advantage of the landscape that's out there right now when it comes to government and the stimulus package.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with this. I mean, I think it's smart on Kansas's part. So, Kellis, what's been done at Kansas State?
Something similar. It's been a while since they announced it, so I don't remember all the details exactly. But I don't think there were furloughs. Basically, if you made $150,000 or more, you took a certain amount of pay cut. If you made less than $100,000, you took a different pay cut. It all came out to be about 10%, 5 to 10% salary cut on everything. I believe the head coaches, Chris Kleiman, Bruce Weber, and Gene Taylor, I think, took 13% pay cuts. So when you add it all up, I believe it saved the athletic department something like $2.5 million. So it's in line with what Iowa State and other people have been doing. And unfortunately, it's just something that we're seeing a lot of these days.
Hey, let's talk about that, Kellis. Okay, so Kansas comes out with a statement that Les Miles, Bill Self, and Jeff Long are taking voluntary 10% pay cuts. And 2 days later, K-State comes out with a release that says that their coaches are taking 13% pay cuts. So, I don't want to go all tinfoil hat here, but you tell me, does Kansas State taking 13% pay cuts have anything to do with KU's people 2 days earlier taking 10% pay cuts?
I don't think that was a coincidence. No.
Got it.
Well, that kind of stuff doesn't happen in Texas, I'm sure. But it was Drew. I looked. It was like somewhere in mid-April, I think, that Gary Patterson and Jamie Dixon and others, the baseball coach too, I think, the higher profile coaches at TCU all took pay cuts.
Yeah, I mean, all of them, and a couple football assistants as well. And I also think, TCU's kind of looking at scheduling more regional games. For instance, the men's basketball program is doing a quote unquote home and home with Texas A&M. They're playing at two neutral site games, Dickies Arena and the Toyota Center in Houston, where the Rockets play, kind of like the Sprint Center, so to speak. So I think, you'll see TCU and some colleges go more that route as well, just scheduling more road trips, so to speak, or whatnot, where they're not, flying across the country for non-conference games. And Jamie Dixon has said, he'd like to kind of get some, games against some of the Southwest Conference, but yeah, I mean, all the big coaches, TCU's baseball coach makes seven figures. And of course, Gary Patterson's the highest paid, and Jamie Dixon's right up there among the top paid in the Big 12. So all of them took voluntary pay cuts, the athletic director, and like I said, a few assistants. And I know just in general, they're looking at trying to lower costs where they can, such as travel.
That scheduling is an interesting concept. It's too late to do anything about it for football season this year, but there has been chatter and some conversation about just about football games. Do we feel somewhat confident that all 12 regular season games are going to get played this year?
I think they will. I mean, I think there's so much money at stake and the TV contracts, and I think most teams or schools are pretty committed to trying to play them. But with that being said, I think it'll be interesting to see, if some teams maybe try and back out of some of the guarantee games, so to speak, against the lower end competition going forward, just whether, they have the budget to pay those high end or those big numbers to the smaller schools. And obviously not this season, but, maybe, in future years.
I know that Bob Bowlesby suggested this, that, or at least put it out there, schools are going to have to be flexible with this. I mean, what happens if testing turns up a couple of, positives the week of a game? And will that team, they'll quarantine those players, but they'll have to quarantine others, I suspect. And would the game scheduled for that weekend be in jeopardy? And would it be rescheduled? And how about the income from that game? And I just, we started by talking about what things that we know. I think one of the great unknowns is once we get that, let's assume the season is going to start on time, and it does, but you start getting some positive tests. And these, football, we know what the environment's like in the locker room, on the field, and practice. And look, you can limit numbers of players in practice drills and everything, but you're not going to limit, where they are on the field and standing next to each other on the sideline for the most part. Is that is that a valid concern?
I think it's a valid concern, definitely. You asked, are all 12 games going to get played? I think for the most part, the answer is probably yes, but I do think there will be segments of the country that are still hit hard from this, harder than others. And, like TCU plays Cal this year, and Cal is a certain area where there's a little bit more question about whether a football game can be played there. So I think there will be certain games that do unfortunately get canceled or moved around. And yeah, that's going to be something that everyone's going to have to monitor and be flexible with somehow. And I don't know, maybe we'll see some things where if certain teams can't play games, they'll reschedule during bye weeks or find other teams to fill those slots. I don't know. This whole season kind of feels like the Wild Wild West. I don't really know exactly what's going to happen.
No, I agree with you there. And, football had the luxury of being able to both the NFL and major college football had the luxury of being able to wait for the pandemic to play out, where other sports, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, MLS did not. And of course, college basketball loses the NCAA tournament. Golf, heck, everything, right? Golf, tennis, all sorts of big events got pushed away. But football has been able to plan for this. But again, there's just too much we don't know, especially without without the vaccine, and there's so much uncertainty about the health of the players and what without sounding flip about it, a college football locker room in terms of players being near each other isn't unlike the closeness that we saw at the Lake of the Ozarks this past weekend. I mean, that's how they're wearing clothes for the most part, but they're close to each other, and it doesn't take much for the infection to spread. And I don't know. I just the more I think about it, I guess I feel like Bob Bowlesby about this, that they better be, teams better be ready to adjust and be flexible and maybe, think about the possibility of missing games, which will could not just ticket revenue, but if a game isn't played, that affects the league's television contract to some extent, I would suspect. And I don't know. The other thing, and Kellis, you brought it up, I think it's a really good point that it's affecting different parts of the country differently, even within a conference. I think of the ACC, they have, they've got programs in cities, right, in Pittsburgh and Boston and Miami and Louisville, and they also have programs in smaller rural areas, Blacksburg, Clemson, and those even within the conference, those are just different types of situations. So maybe I don't know. We'll and the other thing I think about it from a Big 12 perspective is the Texas-Oklahoma game at the Texas State Fair. You've got 90,000 people in the Cotton Bowl, and you have a couple 100,000 people that aren't in the Cotton Bowl but are around the area at the State Fair. If you've ever been to that game, it is a massive humanity right there, and it's such a big attraction for this conference that I don't see how I just don't see that happening, and I guess what I'm saying is they're going to have to adjust.
Yeah. I mean, there's no question, and you just talk about the Red River game. It's a spectacle, and just imagine the environment, even if they do have 25% or whatever, or like Jesse said at Allen Fieldhouse, if they have limited capacity, the environments aren't going to be the same. And outside of the players, Blair, I think another concern has to be the coaches. I won't name names, but some of the older coaches, that's kind of the more at-risk demographic from, the reports and studies. Our team's going to be prepared if, hey, this coach, whether it's a head coach or offensive coordinator or whatnot, can't, coach or has to go quarantine for 10 days right during a game. That's just as big of a factor if CM Ellinger or Puka Williams or one of the quote unquote stars of the league have to possibly miss a game.
Yeah, Blair, I was going to quote a great philosopher of our time. His name is Mike Tyson, and he said, "Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth." And first off, Drew, Sam Mellinger is not a very good football player, so I don't think we can bring him up on the podcast. I do want to mention that before we even go any further. But no, I think Drew's point is valid. And honestly, Drew, I mean, I hate to sound morbid with this, but I think what you just mentioned is a best case scenario. Okay, a coach gets it, he has to go quarantine for 10 days. A lot of people that are older, like these coaches that get it, don't make it 10 days. You know what I mean? And so that's sort of what I think what you're referring to, Blair, is the unknown and what we don't know about this. I mean, even the logistics of this. I mean, KU was supposed to play New Hampshire on September 5th. Guys, nobody's flying in airplanes right now. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you are a New Hampshire football player, are those 65 guys, 70 guys, 75 guys all signing up to jump on a Southwest Airlines flight or 2 flights to get to Kansas to play this game? Is it that important anymore? And so that's what we don't know. And honestly, like, if someone does get this, and obviously it seems like from the studies out there that these athletes are less at risk than the higher aged people out there. But if a coach gets it and then, God forbid, passes away, I mean, that's when you get the Mike Tyson punches in the mouth. I mean, is college football just going to go on and put the blinders on and say, well, that's too bad. That coach died. Just going to keep going. Just going to keep heading on. And sort of like the Rudy Gobert thing that we saw earlier with the NBA, how everything shut down so quickly, kind of out of respect for him. If that happens one time, 2 times, 3 times, I mean, how much longer can college football and the powers that be continue this thing going on and not feel some sort of regret, remorse, or feeling like this is not the proper thing to do? So I think that, again, what we don't know about this is kind of, for me, what the question marks are with this. And again, hopefully this thing goes away. Hopefully this thing continues to decrease. Hopefully this isn't something that anybody has to deal with. But I think that's the reality of the situation, that this is potentially something that college football and the commissioners and everyone and teams and coaches might have to deal with. And that's sort of the that's part of the equation that we just don't know yet.
All right. Hey, great conversation, everybody. Jesse, Kellis, Drew, I really appreciate you guys stopping by, and we will do this again soon. That'll do it for today. Thanks to our production staff of Derek Donovan, Savannah Smith, Randy Mason, Beth Welsh, Jeff Rosen, and Chris Fickett. Tip of the cap to SportsBeat KC regulars Kellis Robinette and Jesse Newell, and to newcomer Drew Davison from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. We hope to have Drew on more often. Links to stories about KU, K-State, TCU, and the Big 12 can be found in the show notes. Hey, earlier in the episode, you heard me talk about the Sports Pass offer. It still stands, still a good one, $30 for a year's worth of sports coverage, and that includes the Sports Extra in the e-edition. Well, here's an even better offer. Buy the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports, news, features, commentary, analysis, the whole bit. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus extra news, sports, and business coverage. The details can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. That's account.kansascity.com/subscribe. Whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best news and sports coverage in Kansas City, and you're helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again on Friday.